Overnight, the U.S. carried out attacks in Caracas, Venezuela. The U.S. military took President Nicolas Maduro and his wife into custody. According to reports, they're in transit to New York State. Joining us now with more on this breaking news story is WIS White House correspondent John Decker. John, President Trump held an extensive press conference about the events in Venezuela. What was your key takeaway from that?
Well, two key takeaways. It was an hour-long press conference that the president delivered. In addition to the president speaking, we also heard from the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and also the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And what we heard from the president was surprising to some, and that is the president saying that the U.S. for now essentially is in control of Venezuela. But it's not yet clear how many American boots on the ground exist right now and how long they will remain in Venezuela, whether this will be a short-term mission or a long-term mission. In addition, the second key takeaway, I think, is what you just mentioned. Nicolas Maduro, his wife, they've arrived in the United States. They're on U.S. soil. They're at an American military base in New York State. They will be arraigned. That will likely happen on Monday in a federal district courtroom in Manhattan in New York City. They face serious charges based upon the indictment that has been brought against them.
The Justice Department has indicted Maduro on multiple charges. John, you're a lawyer, so can you tell us more about what these charges are?
Well, they're serious charges. This military action really based upon a superseding indictment brought by the Department of Justice against Nicolas Maduro that was unveiled within the past week. It alleges that Maduro, his wife, and his son are the heads of a criminal enterprise and have been involved in a conspiracy to essentially export to the United States vast amounts of cocaine over the course of the past few years. Nicolas Maduro has denied these allegations. An original indictment was brought back in 2020 against Nicolas Maduro along these same lines. He will get the opportunity to defend himself in a criminal court, a federal district court. The beginning part of this process is an arraignment that could happen just 2 days from now on Monday in Manhattan. And then a case against Maduro, a criminal trial, would likely get underway in the latter part of this year.
Action.
Well, we know that there have been reactions coming from members of Congress, and it really depends upon what party that member is from as it relates to their reaction to what we saw take place within the past 24 hours. Republicans generally are very supportive of this action to remove Nicolas Maduro from power. They applaud the action taken by the U.S. military, applaud the action taken by the Trump administration. Democratic lawmakers, by contrast, are critical of this action, not so much because they think that Maduro is a good person, but really because they say there was no congressional authorization that was sought by the administration, nor any briefing that has been given to key members of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees and House and Senate Armed Services Committees. They also are critical because they say the U.S. has no clear goal in place in the short term and in the long term in terms of how to deal with Venezuela. What type of government would control the Venezuelan people?
An important point there. And finally, what about the reaction from America's allies and adversaries?
Well, our adversaries, including Russia and China, very critical of this U.S. action. They call it illegal, this action by the U.S. military. Even critical of this action taken by the military in Venezuela was our neighbor to the south, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, a traditional ally of the U.S. She called this a violation of international law. As for America's allies like France and the UK, they support the idea of removing Nicolas Maduro. They too viewed him as an illegal representative of the Venezuelan people, an illegitimate leader of the Venezuelan people. But I think they're taking a wait-and-see approach in terms of how this legal process proceeds against Nicolas Maduro and how the U.S. manages the Venezuelan people now that President Trump has said that the U.S. controls the Venezuelan government.
John, thank you so much for the update. Always appreciate your insight.